All right, Addy Saturn Army, and hello to all those who may be watching this. This is the official, I guess I'll call it patch notes for samtheq.com. I recently did a pretty huge overhaul behind the scenes, and I figured instead of making a little post about it, I'd just make a video, and I would go over in depth everything that I changed. So let's go ahead and just jump right in. So if we go to the website, the front page already looks a little bit different, but whereas before this would if you went to samtheq.com, it would basically redirect you to the index.html, because that's how, to my knowledge, most web servers or hosting plans will, whenever you upload your site, your default page is your index.html. So, but if I go to index.html now, that directory, that file doesn't exist. But if I go to index.php, it's the same thing as home, and if I click on the home button, it takes us home. So obviously the first thing I changed is, well, I guess we'll start from the top. The banner is a little bit different, and that's because I'm finally going to actually make the banner instead of have it just be this one that I took from my WordPress site a couple years ago. And the background is a gradient, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically have like a transparent logo that says like Sam the Q or something, or STQ. Basically something that makes it look like this background, this gradient here, is actually part of the background. And I can't, it's not going to look blocky when it's finished, but I changed this up a little bit. Yeah, this is a little bit different. The recent goings on is actually also a bit different, where now the button will always be at the bottom. You'll notice that the gradients are here too. I'll get into that a little bit as well. You can now join the Discord server right from my website. Will I regret this in the future? Maybe. I guess only time will tell. This Twitter widget is still broken on mobile, and I don't know why, because if I open up the developer console and switch to how it would look on an iPhone X, it looks fine, right? The font scales, but it doesn't actually do it on mobile devices, and that drives me insane. Also, I forgot to mention that now the top bar will stick to the top when you scroll. Previously, on 1080 monitors, whenever it would get to a width of 900, the bar would go away, and now I made it so that would happen basically right before an overflow would happen with the banner. So it looks a little bit bigger. You'll also notice that this is also shrinking responsibly. That's because I implemented something called SAS or SCSS on the website. Which basically, so I could use some of the Bootstrap native classes and modify them. So I enabled responses. I also enabled gradients, which is why you see that on the buttons there. So the reason that this is an PHP page and not an HTML page anymore is because these actually fetch information from a database live. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the database on another tab. And, so this is going to look like complete trash, and there's probably a lot of blurring going on. But I need to do this to illustrate a point. So you'll see here that there's some entries in my PHP admin database. So if I go to edit, and then I scroll over here a little bit, and I change the new coding page to, let's just change it to new coding page ... And then I click on go, and then I refresh the page here, new coding page ... So these run a PHP code that basically fetches information from my database and displays it. It'll always get the most recent 3 entries and display them reverse chronologically. It does a date conversion behind the scenes, and all I need to do is, update it in the database, and then it'll reflect it instead of having to download it or just re-upload the HTML file with new stuff. This will constantly fetch stuff live. It's a bit more efficient that way. So that's the homepage. It looks kind of the same. It's mostly little things. The banner now says powered by Sam the Q instead of powered by Comp 105. This contact will now mail me, instead of sending it to my ithaca.edu email, it'll send it to the email I have with the website. I'll talk about, this says something about a web project or a web app. I'll talk about that in a little bit, but we're just going to basically just go right through it. About is mostly the same. I think I might have changed 1 or 2 sentences. In the bio, I think this might be a little bit new. But the big thing is, this is the whole page is a lot more responsive, and I'll show, and I guess I can also show the code that makes this work. Yeah, so they have a default width, and then, at these breakpoints, they'll change. So and we can see this illustrated. I guess, let me make it responsive. So, I mean, obviously when it gets, at some point, it's really not worth trying to fix. But you know, like, because there are no browsers that'll have a width of 200 on any device, really, as I think even multitasking has higher resolution than that. But as you can see, the pictures just change their height. The font is also changing slightly because of the responsive font tag. And yeah, so that's kind of how that works. But this is also mostly the same. All right, here on the experience tab, this is my resume. I mostly just updated my resume, and now I just kind of have the page reflect when I last changed it. This is actually not correct. I changed it yesterday, so I have to change this. You can download this button right here will download the resume for you, and then you can just click this button right here to view it. The reason I have it both ways is because if there's someone who's a little bit older, maybe not as browser savvy, they can, you know, I don't want to say idiot proof, but it's you know, this way it's very clear what you can do. You know, this will immediately start a download. This will just view it in a new tab. Well, I guess we'll move on. The blog, I rolled this out a while ago, but I guess it's worth talking about now. The blog is now also completely, it pings a database, and it's PHP. These, very much like the things on the homepage, these are all entries. And basically what I do is I add an entry to the database, and then these will sort them reverse chronologically. I want to continue to make this more refined, like, you know, have them sorted by date, and continue to expand upon this. But as it stands right now, you know, this is much better than essentially adding a new card to my Bootstrap class, then having hundreds of them to the point where the HTML file is huge. Now it just pulls information from a database, and the HTML page, or I guess the PHP page rather, is very small. So, projects, this is also something I rolled out, but instead of just saying media, now there's a coding page and a media page. The media page does have some slight changes. I added my senior thesis film. I now added these little things, which you can use to just kind of quickly navigate. I changed these to be more like these ones up here. This one now actually reflects a video that I made. I need to both film more things and find more things that I worked on. Go to the coding page. These now have like an identifier as to what they are. These are all, of course, still coming soon. I actually have to talk to the person that I'm working with about this because I have not heard from them in a while. And then we've got some web projects. This is another site I work on. I made called castandchill.com. This is for the podcast I have with my friend Dean. All the pages do have content on them. And the reason that there's that fade is so that it doesn't all flash. I think it looks a little bit cleaner. The reason I don't implement that on my own site is because my site has a lot more content, and if I had to wait for everything to load, the page would people would probably be like, oh, why isn't it loaded yet? This also has a little button. You can see it was made by me. I added this just in case someone stumbles across it and they want to know who made it. This is a fun little thing. So basically during a live stream, my friend and I started saying, "Hey Pierre, you want to come out here?" And then we would cite some dumb commercial. So let's ask Pierre, "Hey Pierre, you want to come out here?" And then we would say these random copy pastas like the Fitness Gram Pacer test is a multi-stage aerobic multi-capacity test. Here's the classic copy pasta. Need a moment? Chew with twigs. The button changes color so that you're so that it's very clear that you pressed it, because sometimes it'll say the same thing twice in a row. And then the reason I have these here is because if these things are found in the wild, like the other project I'm working on, the Hero Command Menu Maker, I anticipate that being found in the wild once it's finished, and that's just so that people can go back to the website and find other stuff that I've worked on. Obviously this is a stupid little thing I did in JavaScript. I did it in an hour, but it's still fun. So we'll go back to the web projects. This is obviously not done yet. I don't really want to show it until it's more done. It's close. It's just it's missing some key features. Okay, so now let's look at content. These are mostly the same, I think. These are almost exactly the same. And then Twitch is also the same. I added my GitHub to the list of things there. Really quick before we move on to some of the code that makes this work. This right here is the Twitch widget. It's been here, but Twitch is changing their API, so I had to remake this. And I remade it in a way that uses the new API, and it should be usable for anyone who wants to. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut over to some of the code and show you guys how some of this stuff works. Alright, so we're here looking at the JavaScript, and basically what this does is it pings the Twitch server for some JSON about my Twitch channel, and then we'll create span tags with that information, like the username, how many viewers I have, what I'm playing, whether or not I'm online, And this will change if I'm online, and it also just hyperlinks out to my Twitch channel. This is how it's implemented in the HTML. Basically, there's an image ID, which is in the newer version of this, which I'll talk about in a minute, gets replaced. By default, it's the favicon for the website, or favicon, however you want to fucking say it. And then by default, when the page loads, you can see it'll say loading and then loading status. It set it for a second, but that's just so that, just in case it takes a second and I am online, I don't want to give people the impression that I'm not. So if it says loading, it gives the better impression, like, oh, waiting for a response. Gotcha. And then in the new version, so this uses the new API, and it was a pain in the ass, but it basically does the same thing. I think it just takes a lot longer. And you can actually, and the way that this is presently set up, you can actually just replace where it says CorporalSaturn with your Twitch username. And I'm only going to use this new version of the API when they deprecate the old one. But yeah, so that's the JavaScript. That's really all the scripting that the site does. There is some the resizing obviously is all handled by Bootstrap, but that in itself is controlled by like these classes like column, height, and stuff like that. So the last thing I want to show is something called Sass or SCSS, and basically it's regular CSS on steroids. It basically you can write CSS in a more sensible way, in a way that's more conducive to actual code, and then what it'll do is it'll compile it into CSS that a browser can read. All these classes at the top here are from regular Bootstrap, but these ones at the bottom are mine. Most of my styling is done on normal style sheets. I only recently upgraded to Sass, so there's not a lot. Well, there's a lot here, but it's all Bootstrap stuff. And then my stuff is called after, and it overrides. And the rest of that's in my other style sheet. Basically, in order to get this to work, you need a compiler or a watcher, and it's a pain in the butt to get one working with brackets. So I actually wrote my own. I say wrote my own. I didn't really write my own. I basically made a batch file that redirects to whatever working directory I want to use. So if I run it, it lists it changes to where I keep all of my projects, and every website or app is in its own folder, and then in that folder is all the JavaScript, all the CSS, all the HTML files. And what this does is it'll start a Sass compiler, or it'll start like a watch on whatever directory I pick. So since I'm working on my website, let's just do Sam the Q, and it's watching for Sass changes. Sorry about that. My computer made a noise. Yeah, so now it's watching for Sass changes. So if we were to say, instead of, let's just change that to 20%, hit save, compiled, and then it'll say it compiles to this CSS file. Let's undo that. And that compiles to the compiled styles, and that uses this map here to, I don't even want to begin to know how to read this, but I'm assuming the map is what helps it. And you'll know that the watch is working when it creates this file, and this file. And since I'm not really doing any CSS work, I'll just stop it, and I'll really quick show that again. Basically, it does this. So you have to install Sass, and that in itself is kind of it's not a pain. It takes a minute, but and then once you have it installed, you basically run this command, and you change to your directory. I might make a separate video on how to use Sass in brackets without any plugins, but because that's not really what this video is. But yeah, that's really all I want to show. Basically, how the blog page works and the home page indexes. These echo information from the database in a for loop. But yeah, that's pretty much all of the changes for samtheq.com. If I missed anything, I might make a comment or update the description. Thanks everyone for watching. If you haven't already, please check out the site. Please check out the other site, castandchill.com. And if you want to listen to if you didn't know, I don't think I've ever really talked about this on the channel. I do Cast and Chill as a podcast that I co-host with my friend Dean Weiss. You can check it out at castandchill.com. Also castandchill.com/Spotify, castandchill.com/new episode, castandchill.com/Anchor. Those last three links that I mentioned will all redirect you automatically to Spotify, our YouTube channel's most recent upload, and Anchor.fm respectively. But yeah, with all that being said, I think that's gonna just wrap everything up. Thanks so much for watching. Your next mission, should you choose to, I need to change my outro. It's so boring. I'll tell you what else I need to do. I need to shave. I need to maybe get a haircut, and I need to remember how to use my brain, because brain.exe just stopped working there. All right, bye.